200 guests sat in hushed anticipation, their expensive perfumes mingling with whispered speculation. Ivana stood at the altar in her mother's vintage lace gown, hands trembling as she clutched a bouquet of white peonies. Her heart hammered against her ribs not with joy, but with the sick certainty that something was about to go catastrophically wrong. She'd felt it all morning, the way Freddie had avoided her eyes during the brief moment they'd crossed paths before the ceremony, the way his best man kept checking his phone with increasing panic, the way the air itself seemed to hold its breath. The chapel was perfect. Ivory roses cascaded down marble pillars, their fragrance thick enough to choke on. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, painting everything in shades of false promise. Freddie stood beside the officiant, devastatingly handsome in his custom Tom Ford tuxedo, dark hair perfectly styled, jaw carved from marble. He looked like every woman's dream, and he knew it. That knowledge lived in the cruel curl of his lips, in the cold assessment of his pale blue eyes. For 12 months, Ivana had mistaken that cruelty for passion. She told herself his cutting remarks were jokes. His public humiliations were tests of her devotion. His wandering hands on other women were just friendly gestures she was too insecure to understand. She loved him through it all. Desperately, pathetically. The officiant opened his mouth to begin. That's when the chapel doors burst open. A woman stood silhouetted in the doorway, backlit like some avenging angel. She wore a red dress, blood red, deliberately provocative. Her blonde hair caught the light as she strode down the aisle, heels clicking against marble with the rhythm of a death march. Gasps rippled through the crowd like dominoes falling. Ivana's breath stopped. She knew that face. Tasha Monroe, Freddie's childhood friend. The girl he'd grown up with in the Hamptons. The one whose photos still lived in his apartment, tucked in drawers he thought Ivana didn't search. The one he still texted at 2 a.m. when he thought she was asleep. Tasha reached the altar, her smile sharp enough to draw blood. "Sorry I'm late." She wasn't talking to Ivana. Freddie's face transformed. The bored, vaguely irritated expression he'd worn all morning melted into something Ivana had never seen directed at her raw, desperate longing. "Tasha." Her name fell from his lips like a prayer. "Don't do this," Tasha said softly, but her voice carried through the chapel's perfect acoustics. "Don't marry her when we both know who you really belong with." The bouquet slipped from Ivana's fingers, peonies scattering across marble. "Freddie?" Her voice came out small, broken. What is she talking about? He didn't look at her. His entire world had narrowed to the woman in red. "I'm sorry," he said, but the apology wasn't for Ivana. It was directed at Tasha, his voice cracking with emotion Ivana had begged for and never received. "I thought I could do this. I thought I could be what my father wanted, but I can't. I can't pretend anymore. Freddie, please." Ivana reached for his arm. "We can talk about this. Whatever this is, we can." He jerked away from her touch like she'd burned him. "Don't." The single word was ice. This was a mistake from the beginning. You knew that, didn't you? Deep down, the chapel had gone silent. 200 people holding their collective breath. Phones emerging from clutches and pockets. Recording her humiliation for posterity. "I love you," Ivana whispered, hating herself for the plea in her voice. Everything I've done, everything I've endured, it was for us. There is no us. Freddie's laugh was cruel. There never really was. You were convenient, available. My father approved, and I needed someone to. He stopped himself, but the damage was done. Someone to what? Pass the time? Make Tasha jealous? Prove something to his father? Come back to me, Ivana heard herself beg, even as some distant part of her soul shattered. Please, we can fix this. I'll be better. God, have some dignity. Freddie's lip curled with disgust. This is embarrassing. Tasha slipped her hand into his, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light. Let's go. And he went. Freddie Heatherstone walked down the aisle of his own wedding, leaving his bride at the altar, his hand clasped in another woman's. He didn't look back, not once. The chapel erupted. Shocked whispers became outraged conversations. Cameras flashed. Someone's aunt fainted. The officiant stood frozen, Bible open to a passage about eternal love and faithfulness. Ivana stood alone in her mother's lace gown, surrounded by ivory roses and shattered dreams, and felt something inside her die. Not her love that would take longer to kill, but her willingness to beg, her tolerance for cruelty disguised as affection, her belief that loving someone hard enough could make them love you back. She bent slowly, gathering her scattered peonies with shaking hands. When she straightened, her eyes caught on a figure in the back row. Wilson Heatherstone sat perfectly still while chaos swirled around him. Freddie's father was 62, silver-haired and commanding in the way only old money and older power could achieve. His expression was unreadable, but his hands gripped the pew in front of him with white-knuckled fury. Their eyes met across the devastated chapel. In that moment, Ivana saw something that would change everything. Wilson wasn't angry at her. He was livid with his son. 3 months later, Ivana barely recognized herself. The girl who'd begged at the altar was gone. In her place stood a woman who'd learned that heartbreak could be an education if you paid attention to the lessons. She'd spent the first week after the wedding in bed, crying until her body ran dry. The second week, she'd gotten angry. The third week, she'd gotten strategic. Freddie had taken everything from her dignity, her trust, her belief in love. The photos and videos from the wedding had gone viral. She'd become a meme, a cautionary tale, a punchline. The desperate bride who got left at the altar. But she'd also discovered something valuable in those dark weeks of humiliation. She had nothing left to lose, and people with nothing to lose were dangerous. The event was Black Tie, a charity gala for pediatric cancer research, one of the few causes that brought out Manhattan's elite with genuine checkbooks instead of just champagne appetites. Ivana arrived alone, dressed in a gown of midnight blue silk that hugged every curve she'd sculpted through rage-fueled gym sessions. Her dark hair was swept up, revealing the elegant line of her neck. Diamond studs her grandmother's, not gifts from Freddie caught the light. She'd transformed grief into armor, and tonight she was going to war. Ivana Moretti, the voice was measured, cultured, with an edge of something darker underneath. Wilson Heatherstone materialized beside her, holding two glasses of champagne. He offered her one, with a slight nod that somehow conveyed both respect and challenge. Mr. Heatherstone, She accepted the glass, meeting his gaze directly. "I'm surprised to see you here. My late wife started this foundation. I attend every year." He paused, his gray eyes assessing her with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't. "I'm surprised to see you here. Most people would have left the city by now." "I'm not most people. No." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I'm beginning to realize that." They stood in silence, watching the crowd swirl around them. Somewhere in that sea of designer gowns and false smiles, Freddie was probably holding court. Tasha draped on his arm like a trophy. Ivana didn't look for him. She'd stopped looking for him weeks ago. "He called me last week," Wilson said quietly. "Asked for money. Apparently, Tasha has expensive tastes, and his trust fund has ... limits. And did you give it to him?" I hung up on him. Wilson's voice was flat, emotionless. He made his choice. He can live with the consequences. Ivana turned to study Freddie's father properly. She'd met him a handful of times during her relationship with his son Brief. Formal encounters where Wilson had been polite but distant. She'd assumed his reserve was disapproval of her. Now she wondered if it had been disapproval of what his son was becoming. "Erased him," she said. Not quite an accusation. "I did." Wilson's jaw tightened. "And somewhere along the way, I failed. I gave him everything except the ability to appreciate what he had, to value loyalty, to understand that love isn't something you discard when a shinier option appears." His words were clearly about Freddie's behavior, but the way Wilson's eyes lingered on Ivana suggested he might also be talking about himself. "I wanted to apologize," Wilson continued. "What my son did to you was unforgivable. The public humiliation, the don't." Ivana cut him off, her voice sharp. "I don't want your apology. I don't want anyone's pity." "Good." Wilson's smile was genuine this time. "Because I wasn't offering pity. I was offering respect. You stood in that chapel with grace while my son demonstrated he has none. That takes strength." Something shifted in the air between them. An understanding, a recognition. "Walk with me," Wilson said. It wasn't quite a command, but it wasn't a request either. They moved through the gala like sharks through smaller fish. Both of them tall, striking, radiating a combined power that made people step aside. Wilson's hand rested lightly on the small of her back proprietorial, in a way that made people take notice, made people whisper. Ivana felt the stares like pinpricks. She could practically hear the speculation. Is that Freddie's father with Freddie's ex-fiancée? No, surely not. How scandalous. How deliciously inappropriate. "They're talking about us," Ivana murmured. "Let them." Wilson's voice held dark amusement. "I haven't given them anything interesting to discuss in years." They ended up on a balcony overlooking Central Park. The spring night air cool against Ivana's bare shoulders. The sounds of the gala faded to a distant hum. "Why did you really approach me tonight?" Ivana asked. Wilson was quiet for a long moment, his profile sharp against the city lights. "Because I saw you standing there alone, and I remembered the look on your face at the wedding. Not during the disaster after, when everyone had gone and you thought no one was watching." Ivana's breath caught. She'd stayed in that chapel for hours after it emptied. sitting in the front pew still wearing her gown, staring at the altar where her future had died. I saw rage. Wilson continued softly. Not grief, not defeat, pure, crystallized rage. And I thought there's a woman who won't stay down. You're right. Ivana turned to face him fully. I won't. Good. Wilson's smile was predatory now. Because I have a proposition for you. The affair, because that's what people called it. Though it was so much more calculated than simple passion begun with dinner, Wilson took Ivana to Daniel, where the waiters knew better than to ask questions, and the private rooms offered perfect discretion. They talked for hours about art, about business, about the corrosive nature of entitlement, and the surprising strength found in humiliation. He was brilliant, sardonic, unexpectedly kind, and he looked at her like she was the most fascinating creature he'd ever encountered. The second dinner was at 11 Madison Park, the third at Le Bernardin. By the fourth, Ivana realized they'd stopped, pretending it was just conversation. This is dangerous, she said, setting down her wine glass with deliberate care. Yes. Wilson's gray eyes held hers. Does that bother you? No. Ivana smiled slowly. That's the problem. The first kiss happened in Wilson's penthouse because, of course, he had a penthouse 75 floors above the city, all floor-to-ceiling windows and priceless art. He'd invited her up for a nightcap after dinner, and they both knew it was a pretense. He kissed her with the confidence of a man who knew exactly what he wanted and had stopped apologizing for it decades ago. His hands cupped her face like she was precious, fragile. She kissed him back with all the fury and hunger she'd suppressed for 12 months with his son, channeling her rage into passion, her pain into power. When they broke apart, breathless, Wilson's forehead rested against hers. Tell me this is about revenge, he murmured. Tell me you're using me to hurt him, and I'll walk away. I've been used before. I can survive it. Ivana pulled back to look at him properly, at the silver in his hair, the lines around his eyes that spoke of hard-won wisdom, the strength in his jaw, the hunger in his gaze. This started as revenge, she admitted, but it's become something else. What? Freedom. She kissed him again, and this time, neither of them stopped. 6 weeks later, the engagement announcement hit the society pages like a bomb. Wilson Heatherstone, CEO of Heatherstone Industries, to wed Ivana Moretti in intimate ceremony this fall. The photo showed them at a gallery opening, Wilson's arm around Ivana's waist, both of them looking at each other with unmistakable intimacy. She wore a diamond on her left hand that made her previous engagement ring look like a toy from a cereal box. Ivana's phone exploded. Texts from friends she hadn't heard from since the wedding disaster. Emails from reporters. Voicemails from distant relatives suddenly remembering they existed. And one number she recognized immediately, even though she'd deleted it from her contacts months ago. Freddie, we need to talk. Now. She blocked him and went back to choosing flowers for the wedding with Wilson's event planner. But Freddie Heatherstone had never been good at taking no for an answer. He showed up at her apartment that evening, somehow charming or bribing his way past her doorman. When Ivana opened her door, there he stood looking, disheveled in a way that would have made her heart ache 3 months ago. Now she just felt cold. "How dare you?" Freddie spat, pushing past her into the apartment. "My father, Ivana. My own father? I don't remember inviting you in." Ivana left the door open pointedly. "You have 60 seconds before I call security. You're doing this to punish me." Freddie's laugh was harsh. "Fine. Point made. You have my attention. Now end this farce. And end what? Exactly?" Ivana crossed her arms. "My engagement to a man who treats me with respect, who values my intelligence, who doesn't humiliate me at parties or flirt with other women in front of me. He's 62, and you're 29 with the emotional maturity of a teenager." Ivana's voice was acid. "Age is just a number. Freddie, you taught me that when you left me at the altar for your childhood girlfriend." Freddie's face flushed. "Tasha and I have history. You could never understand." "You're right. I can't understand throwing away something real for a fantasy." Ivana moved to the door, holding it wider. "How is Tasha, by the way? Still spending your trust fund on Birkin bags?" "This isn't about her." Freddie's voice dropped to the intimate tone he'd used when they were dating, the one that used to make her melt. "This is about us. What we had. We had nothing. You made that very clear. I made a mistake." He stepped closer, and Ivana caught the familiar scent of his cologne, the one that used to make her feel safe, and now just made her feel nauseated. "I was scared. You were talking about forever, about building a life, and I panicked. But I see clearly now. You're the one I should be with." "Interesting." Ivana's smile was sharp. "You see clearly now that I'm engaged to your father. Now that I'm about to become part of the Heatherstone fortune, in a way you can't control. Now that I've moved on. That's not." Freddie ran his hand through his hair, a gesture Ivana used to find endearing. "I love you. I should have said it before, but I'm saying it now. I love you." The words she desperately wanted to hear for 12 months landed like dead fish. "No." Ivana's voice was steady. "You love the idea of me belonging to you. You love that I was convenient and adoring, and didn't demand you actually be a better person. You don't love me, Freddie. You never did. And my father does?" The sneer was back. "Please. He's using you to punish me, to teach me some lesson about consequences. You're just a pawn in his game." "If I am," Ivana said softly, dangerously, "at least he plays with intelligence. You couldn't even manage a decent lie." Freddie's hand shot out, gripping her wrist hard enough to bruise. "You're making a huge mistake." The threat was clear, in his eyes the same threat that had always been there, buried under charm and wealth. The promise of consequences if she didn't comply. For 12 months, that threat had kept her small, compliant, silent. She was done being silent. Let go. Each word was ice. Or what? Freddie's grip tightened. "You'll tell my father. He won't believe. He'll believe her." Wilson's voice cut through the apartment like a blade. He stood in the doorway, his presence filling the space with cold fury. His eyes, normally warm when they looked at Ivana, were arctic as they fixed on his son. "Take your hand off my fiancé. Now." Freddie dropped Ivana's wrist like it had burned him. "Dad, I can explain." "Explain what?" "That you're in my fiancé's apartment uninvited." That you just physically assaulted her? That you're threatening her because she had the audacity to move on with her life? She's playing you. Freddie's voice rose desperately. Can't you see? She's using you to get back at me for the wedding. She doesn't love you, she loves me. Wilson's laugh was devoid of humor. The narcissism is truly breathtaking. Tell me, son, does it ever occur to you that not everything is about you? He moved to Ivana's side, his hand gentle on her lower back. The contrast between his touch and Freddie's violent grip couldn't have been starker. Ivana is marrying me because I offer her something you never could. Partnership, respect, a future built on mutual admiration, rather than your need for constant validation. This is sick. Freddie's voice shook. She's young enough to be your. Careful. Wilson interrupted, voice deadly quiet. Think very carefully about what you're about to say. Freddie's mouth snapped shut. Here's what's going to happen, Wilson continued, his tone the same one he probably used in hostile boardroom negotiations. You're going to leave. You're going to stay away from Ivana, and you're going to examine why the idea of her being happy without you fills you with such rage. You can't be serious about marrying her. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Wilson's arm tightened around Ivana's waist. She's brilliant, resilient, and has more integrity in her little finger than you've demonstrated in your entire life. What about Tasha? Ivana found her voice, unable to resist the question. I thought she was your great love. Freddie's face flushed. That's complicated. She left you, didn't she? Ivana read it in his eyes. The minute your father cut you off, she was gone. The confirmation was written in Freddie's silence. Ivana felt a strange sense of closure. Not satisfaction, she wasn't cruel enough to enjoy his pain, but understanding. Freddie had built his life on superficial connections, on transactions disguised as relationships. Now he was experiencing the inevitable result. I think we're done here, Wilson said. Security will see you out. Two uniformed guards appeared at the door Wilson had clearly called ahead. Freddie looked between them, between his father and his ex-fiancée, and something crumbled in his expression. This isn't over. Yes, Ivana said quietly. It is. They watched him leave, the guards flanking him like he was a criminal, which Ivana supposed he'd stolen 12 months of her life through manipulation and cruelty. When the door closed, Wilson turned to her immediately, his hands framing her face. Did he hurt you? My wrist is a little sore, but I'm fine. Let me see. Wilson's touch was feather-light as he examined the reddening mark. Freddie's grip had left. His jaw tightened. I'll destroy him for this. No. Ivana covered his hands with hers. Let him destroy himself. He's doing a thorough job of it already. Wilson studied her for a long moment. You're extraordinary. You know that. I'm learning. Ivana smiled. You're a good teacher, am I? Wilson's expression grew serious. Because I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Ivana's heart kicked against her ribs. Okay? Did this us start as revenge? The question she'd been expecting since they'd first kissed. Ivana took a breath, choosing her words carefully. It started as rage, as a desire to take back some power in a situation where I'd been made completely powerless. When I saw you at that gala, when you approached me, I saw an opportunity. Wilson's expression didn't change, but she felt him tense. But here's what I didn't expect, Ivana continued. I didn't expect you to be kind. I didn't expect you to listen when I talked. I didn't expect you to make me laugh, to challenge me, to see me as an equal. I didn't expect to fall in love with you. The words hung in the air between them. You love me. Wilson's voice was rough. Yes, the admission felt like stepping off a cliff. And if that makes this complicated, if that changes. He kissed her, cutting off her words. It was different from their previous kisses, less heat, more tenderness. Like he was trying to pour everything he felt into the connection of their mouths. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright. I fell in love with you the night of the gala, he confessed. When you told me you didn't want pity, when you walked into that room like a queen despite everything my son had done to you, I thought there's a woman worth knowing, worth fighting for. Even though I'm marrying you partially to spite your son, especially because you're complex enough to contain multitudes. Wilson smiled. Revenge and love aren't mutually exclusive, Ivana. You can want both. You can have both. And you're okay with that? I'm 62 years old. I've had a lifetime of simple, straightforward relationships that bored me to tears. You're complicated, unpredictable, and you keep me on my toes. Why would I want anything else? Ivana laughed, feeling something tight in her chest finally loosen. Your son thinks you're using me to punish him. My son thinks the world revolves around him. Wilson's tone was dry. I'm marrying you because you make me feel alive. If that happens to infuriate Freddie, well, that's just a pleasant bonus. The wedding was everything the first attempt had been, and nothing like it. They married in Wilson's Southampton estate, in a ceremony restricted to 50 guests. Real friends, people who'd proven their loyalty over years, not just shown up for spectacle. Ivana wore a gown of champagne silk, simple and elegant. Her hair fell in loose waves around her shoulders. She carried peonies again, but this time, they stayed firmly in her grip. Wilson waited for her at the altar in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, silver hair gleaming in the afternoon sun streaming through the conservatory windows. When he saw her, his entire face transformed with a joy so genuine it stole her breath. There were no dramatic interruptions, no women in red dresses, no fleeing grooms. Just two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of other plans, choosing to build something new. When Wilson slid the ring onto her finger, his hand was steady. When she repeated her vows, her voice was strong. And when they kissed, sealing their marriage, the applause that erupted was genuine, not the forced politeness of society obligation. Afterward, at the reception, Ivana found herself on the terrace, looking out over the manicured gardens rolling down to the ocean. Mrs. Heatherstone. Wilson joined her, pressing a glass of champagne into her hand. The title still sounded strange, but she was getting used to it. Mr. Heatherstone. She smiled. Come here often. Only when my extraordinary wife is here. He pulled her close, and they swayed gently to the music drifting from inside. Have I told you lately that you're the best decision I've ever made? Not in the last hour. Unforgivable. Let me remedy that immediately. He spun her out and back in, making her laugh. You, Ivana Heatherstone, are brilliant, beautiful, and far too good for me. I plan to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. You already do. She rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. You see me, Wilson, actually see me. That's more than I ever hoped for. They stood there as the sun set over the Atlantic, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. Inside, their guests celebrated. Outside, they existed in a bubble of hard-won peace. Ivana's phone buzzed in her clutch. She pulled it out, then froze. Freddie, congratulations. I hope you're happy with your revenge. She showed Wilson the message. Do you want me to handle it? He asked, his voice carefully neutral. Ivana stared at the text for a long moment. Then she typed a reply. Ivana, I am happy. That's the part you'll never understand. This isn't about you anymore. It stopped being about you the moment I realized I deserved better. I hope someday you'll figure out that people aren't prizes to be won or possessions to be kept. I hope you learn to value someone before you lose them. But mostly, I hope you just move on, like I have. Goodbye, Freddie. She blocked his number before he could respond, then dropped her phone back into her clutch. It's done, she said simply. Wilson studied her face. How do you feel? Free. Ivana smiled and meant it. Completely, totally free. He kissed her temple. Good, because I have plans for our honeymoon that require your complete attention. Oh, she raised an eyebrow. Scandalous plans. Extremely. Wilson's grin was wicked. I'm thinking to weeks in Tuscany. Wine tasting, long lunches, longer nights. Not a single thought about my ungrateful son or your past. Sounds perfect. Ivana pulled him into a kiss that made her toes curl. Absolutely perfect. As they broke apart, she caught sight of her reflection in the conservatory windows. A woman in champagne silk, diamonds at her throat, standing in the arms of a man who loved her fiercely and showed it every single day. She barely recognized herself. The girl who'd begged at the altar was gone. The woman who'd stayed through 12 months of cruelty was gone. Even the woman who'd started dating Wilson as revenge was gone. In their place stood someone new. Someone who'd learned that the best revenge wasn't destruction. It was building something beautiful from the ashes. Freddie had broken her heart, but hearts, Ivana had discovered, were remarkably resilient. They could be shattered and reformed into something harder, something that knew its own worth. She wanted revenge. She'd gotten it. But she'd also gotten love. Real love. The kind that made her feel powerful instead of small. The kind that celebrated her strength instead of trying to diminish it. And that was worth more than any petty victory over an ex-fiancé could ever be. Ready to go inside, Mrs. Heatherstone? Wilson asked, offering his arm. Ready, Ivana said, linking her arm through his. They walked back into their wedding reception together, into their future, leaving the past where it belonged behind them. Powerless, finally, and completely irrelevant. The best revenge, Ivana thought, wasn't making Freddie regret losing her. It was making sure she never regretted the loss at all. If this story resonates with you, always remember that when someone leaves you, a better one comes your way. Much love from yours truly,